She's an educator, community advocate, and entrepreneur. This week we sit down with Elizabeth Ortiz, and all new Somos starts right now.
This is your Lehigh Valley, where your success reaches new heights. Excellence isn't achieved by chance. Success requires vision, commitment, flexibility. Change brings opportunity. The opportunity to think and work different, better. This space offers solutions and resources you'll love, with a world-class vibe that's close to home. There's nothing ordinary about this space. Here is where you'll achieve the extraordinary. This is your Lehigh Valley. This is your VentureX.
Hey everyone, thanks again for joining us for a new episode of Somos Lehigh Valley. It's a podcast that's presented by the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce as well as VentureX. We are at VentureX here in beautiful, rainy South Bethlehem today with another great interview. As always, so excited that you're able to join us. We have the lovely Leslie Lopez with us as usual. There we go. The lovely Leslie Lopez is with us for this very important interview. Leslie, I'm going to let you introduce our guest for today, who is a very interesting guest to have.
Of course. So Elizabeth, tell us a little bit more about what you do. Like, what are you all about? Where are you from?
Can I first say that I'm glad that AJ got his sounds right? Because I remember in the beginning of the season, you were trying to get them right. So I love the claps. And that's a good sign for us today.
You're paying attention. It's great. I'm flattered.
Oh my gosh. So my name is Elizabeth Ortiz. I was born and raised in the Lehigh Valley. I grew up in Allentown, was born in Allentown at Sacred Heart Hospital. In high school, I lived right on Penn Street, right behind it. Like, my whole life has been in Allentown forever. So I'm a native here, and I love it here. I wouldn't want to be any other place.
Yeah, and Ortiz, so are both your parents from here too, or where do they originate from?
So my father's family came from Puerto Rico in the late 50s through New York and then down to the Lehigh Valley. Nice. And I think I'm a mix of so many people from the Lehigh Valley. And then my mom's family is German. So if you ask around, there's a lot of half Puerto Rican, half German people in this area. And I think it was that mix, like the 50s and 60s, as people came together in this space. So,
I didn't know that. That's so cool. So you're literally Puerto Rican and German.
Yeah. Wow. It's a perfect mix.
So how has that impacted your upbringing?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's impacted, I think, in brilliant ways, right? I got to see so many different pieces of culture. I got to learn a lot about myself through other people around me. There were so many. I went to Allen High School. There were so many people there who were German and Puerto Rican. And it was just a funny thing to kind of notice. And now you're going to find more people who are that, right? Because once something comes up in your consciousness, then you think about it more. Yeah. It was great, though. I think, Allentown for me is the place where if I had to do it all over again, I absolutely would. I loved being a part of Allentown and growing up in that space. And I got to know people from every background. I mean, Allen High School was this space where there were so many different groups of people, but everybody kind of just got along, right? It was really nice. You didn't just have one group that you were a part of. You were part of many groups. And that to me was thrilling.
Yeah, of course. And what makes Allentown different? Because you have a business, so you can tell us, you can share with us about that business. But what made you say, okay, I'm going to do this here?
Yeah. So we have Cactus Blue, and we opened in 2004 in Bethlehem on Shanersville Road. And at the time, that was literally the only place that would lease to us.
Wow.
The only place. So we were 24. We had no credit or anything. It was me and my husband, and we went to different locations, and no one wanted to lease to us. Number one, because of our age. Number two, because it was a restaurant, and restaurants have, really high rates of failure. And number three, I think because we wanted to open a Mexican restaurant. So those three pieces for people were not comforting.
Was a Mexican restaurant seen as a high risk?
I believe so. Yeah. So at the time, there were a lot fewer restaurants than now. There was like the amazing Zapatas, Amigo Mio. Like there were some beautiful, amazing restaurants, but we just felt like there weren't enough. These were flavors that we loved. My husband grew up, his mom owned a pizza shop on Emmaus Avenue and 4th Street. It was called Sophia's. So he grew up, yes, AG's, yeah. And so she owned this pizza shop, and it was a part, like for my husband, him growing up. And a lot of the guys in the kitchen had come from Mexico. And so my husband had made close friends with all of these guys. He was younger. They were a little bit older. He looked up to them and learned from them. And when we were thinking about opening a restaurant, I said, well, what would you open? And so we were looking at, and Italian was the most popular in the area, then Chinese, and then Mexican. And he said, but I wouldn't do it if I couldn't have Milo with me. So one of our chefs and good friends, the only way we were going to do it if Milo would come with. And Milo came from Puebla, Mexico. And so he, had all of these flavors, all of this inspiration. And he, was happy to come with us. And we were so happy to have him. Like I said, we wouldn't have done it without him. After 19 years, we ended up moving over to Emmaus. So now we're on Chestnut Street in Emmaus. And it was just time for us to make a switch. We loved our people in Bethlehem. They were so kind and so good. But after COVID, things really switched, I think, in terms of what restaurant life was like, but also our own priorities. So we have 3 girls. They're 16, 14, and 11. And for us, we all of a sudden realized, like, in 2 years, one of them is out. And are we going to, are we going to regret anything that we're doing right now? Or will we have wished we did something different? And so for us, we moved the restaurant a little bit closer to our house. It has a little bit smaller, much smaller, I guess, dining room, which means lower rent, right? And we go there so frequently now, the girls and I. We didn't often go to Bethlehem once they started getting so involved in all their sports and school and dance and all those things. Because, it was like half an hour to get over there in traffic. So now in Emmaus, it takes us 10 minutes. We pop in, grab some food. They give dad some hugs. And then we go on to...
Yeah, family's important.
It's so critical. It's central to us. And so it was a hard move, and yet the easiest move. It was the right thing for us.
Yeah, but you did it, and you're still succeeding.
Oh, my gosh. That was scary, right? When you first open a restaurant, you just hope someone's going to walk through the door. So in 2004, we weren't using social media. Right? Yeah. We had a couple ads.
Was it Yellow Pages or?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We had Yellow Pages. That's exactly right. We had the Yellow Pages. I was like telling my friends, texting people. We put some ads in some magazines, which were very expensive.
Yeah.
But that's what you had to do at the time. So the first day we open, and it's like you're just standing there like looking at the front door like, is someone going to come? And people came in, and they just kept coming in. And it was... it's so emotional because you read the data, and it's like, 4 in 5 restaurants fail within the first few years.
Yeah.
And this was what we were doing. My husband, he gets this from his mom too. Like, failure just isn't even something that they consider, which I think about every possibility always, Me
too.
And they're like, no, that's not an option. I'm like, wow. Okay. So I'm trying to embrace that for myself rather than overthinking all the things.
So I know you mentioned the fact that you made the transition to Emmaus. You brought the restaurant closer to home.
Yes.
But I think that one other thing that happened in that process is that you brought the community closer to your business. So what has that been like?
Yeah, so we were on Shainersville, which everyone who we tell about our place on Shainersville was like, oh, right, that crazy parking lot. It was really challenging to get into this parking lot.
I used to work around there, actually.
You had to do like a couple, whatever your faith is or not.
Different
Like
types
you
of
were
U-turns
just,
or whatever.
what were you? It was intense.
Especially if coming off of 22. Like,
you really had to. People are like, so what do I do?
Fast,
I'm like,
cars.
well, you could go right into the parking lot, but I don't suggest that. You got to go. You got to turn.
Especially if there's a cop around.
Oh my gosh, yes. So this was like the biggest conversation. Actually trying to get a loan for the business, that parking lot like did us in.
That was a liability.
Yeah. They were very concerned about that. We work with the Small Business Development Center at Lehigh to get us going. They were amazing. So now, and we were just on the side of the highway, right? Now in Emmaus, we're next to a few other shops. We're so close, right, to all these other people. There's houses right across the street. They can walk over.
Yeah.
It's so nice to feel like part of a community, because we were in Bethlehem, but we weren't in Bethlehem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And now, like, East Penn Chamber is really thoughtful. They're always trying to include us in everything. We were able to host a Somos Latinas luncheon.
Yeah, we had a great time there with that. Yeah.
Yes, it was amazing. It was amazing. But to see everyone in that space and coming together, for us, that space has just given us, it's like our second chapter, and it's really good so far.
That's
I
amazing.
haven't gotten over there, but I want to get over there
Yeah, me
because
too.
I've heard good things about it. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we can also find you, because now we have 2 food trucks.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Talk to us about that.
you.
I mean, I
Yes.
remember the big brown truck,
Yeah.
right? Like,
so
I
now
see that.
it's like slightly smaller big brown truck. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that color in the rendering was like a deep red, but it's definitely like a little UPS brown with some pops of color on it. But it's ours, right?
Yeah,
So,
recognizable.
yeah, so the second one we just picked up last week, and it was a whole discussion. So are we going to change the color? What are we going to do? And in the end, we were like, you know what? It's kind of our thing now. So we're just going to go ahead and embrace that color scheme. It looks beautiful. So we have 2 food trucks now, and we go everywhere with them. So they're all over the valley and even beyond.
Awesome.
And it's so much fun, because when you show up in a food truck, people are happy.
Yeah.
Like in the restaurant, we have amazing people that come in. But, every so often you get people who are, having a rough day, and that they sometimes take it out on you. But I'm telling you, in the food truck, people are just smiling all the time. They're so glad to be there and to come to those spaces.
So that leads me to a question.
Yes.
Obviously, you talked about how the pandemic changed business for you. How did having a food truck, how big of an advantage was that for you?
I think it probably saved us. We got our first food truck in 2017, 2018, and my husband had been wanting one for a long time. But it's not a small undertaking. They're really expensive, to fit them all out and to buy the truck and everything. And
what most people don't know is that you can only have that out at certain times of the year. You have to prep it for the winter storage and prep it again in the spring, right?
Yes,
A lot of work.
a lot of work. Winterizing it is wild. Adam sometimes will show other people like how to winterize their trucks now, because people who are just getting them, it is a lot of work. It's a lot of upkeep. It is a heavy truck, right? So think about just regular wear and tear on a car, and then add, 8,000
Gas
pounds
tanks and
of
things.
of everything. So it is a lot of work, but they go out everywhere. They can be anywhere, right? And so during the pandemic, what they allowed us to do was be outdoors, right? So we closed the dining room over on Shainersville for a couple months. We converted to takeout and family meals. So we really had to adjust very quickly, which I think we did well, because we are a family. So like, what are families looking for? How do they want to show up in this space? People still wanted to eat out, right? But we just couldn't.
Yeah.
So how do you bring that to them? And so our family meals were hugely popular, right? So you get a little bit of everything in a big, huge bag, chips and pico de gallo, and you take it with you and you take it home and enjoy it with your family. Mm-hmm. The truck, starting that summer, was able to be out in spaces, and we could be masked, and most people were masked, and we could prepare their food and give it to them, and it was outdoors. So there was lots of fresh air. So yeah, I think it probably saved us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Congrats on your success. That's
been
amazing.
Yeah, we don't do it alone, right? There's
Yeah.
lots of people who've contributed to it, but we're grateful.
Yeah, so you and your husband, you have like a huge love for Mexican food, correct?
Yeah.
And neither of you are Mexican?
No, so my family, Puerto Rican, his
Yeah.
family, German. So our girls continue the Puerto Rican, German,
Love that. I love
vibe.
that.
But no, it's always been a cuisine to him and to me that was so loved. I grew up originally on the south side of Allentown, and I would go down with my mom to Amigo Mio, and they were open like Thursday, Friday, Saturday from like 5 to 9, and we would go down there and eat, and it was small, and the people were so loving, and there was something about that was always so comforting.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and so with his good friends, being Mexican and being in the food business themselves for many, many years, they were still working at the same pizza shop, right? Even after all that time, his mom had sold it in the early 2000s, but they had still been there.
Yeah.
And so when we were able to get Milo, and now his wife Isabel, who is in charge of like the front of the house for us, it's just been pretty perfect.
Yeah, and you said he's from Puebla.
Yes.
Milo, right?
Yes.
So that means he knows how to make some good mole?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes.
Well, she's from
yes.
Puebla too. So.
No, I'm
Leslie.
not.
Oh my gosh. AJ.
Your family is, isn't it?
No, they're not.
No. Who did you say that was from Puebla? There was somebody who told me was from Puebla.
I was talking about the people from
the people from the restaurant.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Puebla's more down south. And then my parents, they were born in Chihuahua. That's like right at the border.
Okay.
Basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah,
who else?
I love mole.
Yeah.
I feel like I bring up mole on every podcast.
Yeah,
So
why
I
not?
just
Hey,
love it.
we got to get the t-shirts. More mole.
I could help you.
Let's do it.
I'm gonna
Let's
write
do
this
it.
down.
Hey, we got a
Okay.
Taco Fest coming up.
I
Are you
know.
guys coming out to that?
Are you in Allentown or are you in Bethlehem?
That was the Allentown one.
Okay.
On Hamilton between 5th and 7th.
Yes, I think that we were. I have to look. So
Yeah.
my whole calendar is dance class, soccer, and food truck.
Amazing.
So
Yeah.
they all have their different colors. So I have to look because
Nice.
people are like, where are you? I'm like, I don't know until I look. This week we were at Retriever Brewing. On Wednesday we were at
The book fair thing,
the
right?
book fair last
Yeah.
night. Yes, at Let's Play Books. They're Allentown, which is called The End, which I
Yeah.
think is so cute, a bookstore. And we were up there with them. We were at Paychecks on Wednesday. We ended up, it's just in their parking lot, right? And they were like, could you come up and just park in our parking lot? Those people showed up. The whole Paychecks
Wow.
came out. And, that is so cool. And they were sharing and they were posting with their friends. I think people sometimes underestimate what a share of something will do.
Yeah.
like
We've
of
talked
something
about
we'll
that.
do.
We've talked about that. Yeah.
And that to us is critical. So we try to do the same thing then to other people, right? We try to do that to other restaurants. I know I mentioned this earlier, just as we were small talking before, but we don't really see other restaurants as competition. We don't feel that way. We have our thing and they have their thing, and there's enough people eating out in the valley.
Yeah.
Of course.
to-
We had
to do all
Shayna
of it.
from Beeraholic on last week, and she said
Yes.
the same exact thing.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't see other businesses as competition, and I love the fact that everybody knows, hey, you know what? It's so wide open. I mean, there's so many people here that you don't have to fight to keep a
That's
group
exactly
of people.
right. You have to be the best that you can be.
Yeah.
Because that's how they're going to come back, right? I love Shayna's food.
Okay.
We have all these places that we love to go. People say, when you go on vacation, what do you eat? We're we always find, Hispanic, Latino, Mexican restaurants. That's where we want to
you
be.
draw
That's what we
inspiration
want to
from that,
eat.
right?
And we learn and we think this is amazing, or we think maybe we won't come back here, right?
Yeah.
But, everywhere we go, we're learning something, whether to improve what we do, whether to just appreciate something someone else is doing. I think, people are always nervous to cook for us, in particular for my husband, because he's a trained chef. And he just wants people to make him food. People are like, oh, I don't know what to do. Your husband's coming over and how is he, and I'm like, if you put food that you made in front of him, he will be the happiest person
Yeah.
in the world, right? Someone cooking for you that's love.
Yes.
That is love.
So yeah.
Yeah.
More
amazing.
mole. I'm gonna gonna trademark that, like more mole.
I think so. Maybe Edith could make those
Yeah,
shirts.
yeah. Shout out
Right?
Edith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. I have a lot of her stuff.
I was like, yeah. Do you have the Zodiac T-shirt?
I don't. Oh my
Did you hear the
gosh.
story
Yes,
about that? Okay.
Yes.
I'm not
I
gonna-
know.
I'm not gonna belittle the
I wasn't gonna
point.
bring it up. No. But my favorite right now are.
What's his name? The Zodiac.
No,
player?
you keep putting me on the spot.
I know. I didn't even make eye contact with you because mucho amor, right?
There you
Or
go.
Mucho amor.
Yes.
I have the Vota bracelets. The Vote bracelets.
Oh,
I have
yeah.
2 of them, and to me, it's so critically important that everyone get out to vote.
Yes.
But I think in particular, women and Latinos, it's really important to get our voice and have that voice heard at the polls. So I didn't wear the bracelets today because when I'm doing interviews, I don't wear things that clack together.
Yeah, for
Like
the-
necklaces and bracelets.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. So
You can
earrings
tell
are
she's a
okay.
trained communications professional.
But I don't want that messing up when you're trying to edit this but those are my favorite.
Let's talk about the voting for a second,
Yeah.
because I think that's important. There was a stat that came out last week. It was last week. It said that 1 out of every 3 Latino voters is under the age of 27.
Yes. Yes.
What does that say about how important it is to get the young vote out?
Yeah. So overall, right, in the Lehigh Valley, the Latino population has been growing and growing for years. And what we're seeing is that the biggest growth in this population is in young people, right? And so, of course, it makes sense that so many of our young voters are Latino and so many of our Latino voters are young. And I think sometimes people feel that their one vote doesn't make a difference, right? Because it's just one vote. But if I could tell you how many local elections were decided 5, 10, 20, 30 votes, right? For school board at Parkland, there was, this was 2 years ago or 4 years ago during the election, one person won by 5 votes.
Wow.
So it's like you and some of your friends roll up. You're changing an entire election.
Yeah.
You're changing the entire face of what the electorate looks like. And I think that matters so critically. So we have, Allentown is 54% Latino, right?
And the school district is 80%.
The school district is 80%, right? And so we need to make sure that the people who are holding these offices, and Bethlehem has a huge Latino population, Easton, right? We need to make sure that the people who are in these places are representing our voice, right? It's so important. And they may look like us, they might not, but what do they stand for? What do they believe in? And how are they going to look out for this community that has so much love, so much passion, so much power? But I think so many people for so long have felt kind of disenfranchised with voting. And so, and you see like what happens in some of these political spaces is just wild. Like if any of us acted like some of this, you wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing, but they're allowed to kind of continue in these public spaces as public servants when they're not really serving the public.
Yeah.
But we can change that. Right? We can change that. And no matter where you stand, on the political spectrum, you want to have a voice. It's so critical to have a voice. And I hope we can really show up. So this year, the primary election, which is always in May, is in April. So it's kind of like throwing people.
Yeah.
If you're not going to be around, though, you can do voting by mail, right? You can do absentee voting. And then when it comes to November, it's going to be so important for everyone to show up at the polls and to have their voice heard. There are so many things locally, as well as, of course, at the national level that are going to be on the ballot, and they're going to decide a lot of our future.
Yeah, of course. It's really important for like different generations to make sure that newer generations go and do that, because I feel like a lot of newer generations like are more like laid back, nonchalant.
Yeah.
Like, no, this doesn't matter. Like, we don't really care. But it does matter.
It's huge. It's huge. And it's funny because you get that vibe, I think, from younger generations that they're laid back. They don't let things bother them as much, but they are deeply passionate about equity.
Yeah.
I found. And so it's just a matter of finding what it is that sparks them. because these young voices are the ones who are going out there saying, we want to be treated better. We want you to treat other people better. We want to be seen. We want you to see other people. They're showing up in this space, standing up not just for themselves, but for other people that they may not even know. And so it's just a matter of getting them to understand how much their vote will matter, because they care deeply about other people. So now we just have to have them care deeply, in the voting booth as well.
So I think that one of the reasons why we see the lack of interest is because when you look at the options, it seems like it's a lot of the same.
Yeah.
I mean, I think looking ahead to November, many of us are not inspired because the two options are in their 70s.
Yeah.
Right? The
absolutely.
two leading options right now. So how do you get Latinos, especially young Latinos, interested in running for office? Because I think that I think could be the spark that,
Yes.
Gets people out to vote. So how do we get some of our young people interested in running for office?
You know what we do? We ask them, because there's so much power in asking someone something. Even if they've never thought about it, or they've kind of thought about it, but kind of on the lowdown, like asking someone, hey, there's this open spot on the school board. There's this open spot in this PA congressional district. There's this open spot on the House, right? A lot of times there's no one running. Typically, people are running unopposed in a lot of these small local elections, right? And so asking people to be there, to show up in that space, I think that's all we can do. I think there's lots of things we can do. I have a whole plan, right? But I think,
Hold up. Are you saying that you would run?
So growing up, I always thought about it, right? I thought I was going to be a lawyer and a communicator, and I was going to be in political office. And then when I first had my children, and I saw that the way that women in particular were treated when they were running for office, being judged more so on how they show up and how they look and what they're wearing, rather than on the content of what's in their head, that really pushed me away from it. I mean, if you saw, for example, when Hillary Clinton was running for president, so much of the conversation was about her husband, was about what she was wearing, what about what she looked. I mean,
not about her policies or
not about
ideas.
policies, and not about ideas. And for me, I didn't want to subject my 3 young girls to that, right? I didn't want them to see that. And while I'm public in a lot of ways, I'm also very private.
Yeah.
And I didn't love the idea of people digging up every time, you ever took a right on red, where you weren't supposed to.
Yeah.
There's all of this that they're pulling out on people rather than discussing the real issues that matter. But I am probably more driven than ever to find a space where I can support people. And I think a lot of times that is going to be in a political position. So I don't know what that looks like yet. And I think I'll wait for my girls to get a little older and for us to be a little more established in our Emmaus space. But I can't say it's something that I would rule out.
I think I hear the beginnings there of something.
Yeah, but look, you asked, right? You asked.
You asked.
Yeah.
And
You know,
said.
and
You told
that
us.
makes a huge difference.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
It does.
But
It gives them confidence.
Yes, because we see in people what they don't see in themselves.
yes.
So how do we allow them to see that? How do we allow ourselves to shine the mirror on all this amazing that all these young people are doing?
For sure.
So Elizabeth, we've talked about business obviously, but you've also been involved in academia, haven't you?
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. So my passion and excitement for young people comes from teaching. So I taught at Cedar Crest College in the communication department for 19 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So I went back. I also graduated from Cedar Crest. And right after, I went up to Syracuse to do a master's in media studies. I was
Excellent.
really interested.
That's a great school for communications.
It was amazing.
I mean, that's considered like the cathedral of communications.
Yeah, my advisor from undergrad, Jim Brancato, had gone there. And so I always thought, wow, that's really amazing. But I was the first in my family, like so many of us, to go to college. So one day I was sitting in the office of one of my professors, Isabel Molina Guzman. And she was, I think, probably the first Latina professor at Cedar Crest, definitely the first Latina professor that I had ever had. So I was a junior. I'm sitting in her office. And she goes, so where are you going to grad school? And I was like, listen, Dr. Guzman, like I came to college, like, thank you. Like I did great,
got my diploma. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, I was so close. Right. But she asked me, and I thought, oh, well, I better start thinking about it, because if Dr. Guzman is saying this is something I need to do. So then I started looking, and I thought, well, Syracuse, right? Like that kind of was like this space that I always.
So you were used to Pennsylvania. You said, let me just go for more snow.
Yeah, I wanted more. Oh my gosh, we had a light winter. They said when I was up there, we only had like 65 inches.
Oh
of
my
snow.
goodness.
The winter before had been like 120.
Yeah.
So I went.
It gets bad up there.
I know. It's wild. No, I know. We moved back. I went to Syracuse. And honestly, again, and I didn't even realize this was a theme until now we're saying it, right? Sometimes things pop up as you talk about them. Mm-hmm. But because she asked me where I was going, went to Syracuse, came back, and actually they had said, we need you to teach a class or two in the fall. So I was like 24. I had just finished my master's. I was the only person who had gone to college in my family, and they were asking me to teach at college. So I was I was dressed and ready to go. I was like, when do you need me there? Like, do you want me to come right now? And I said, you don't even have to pay me. And my advisor, luckily, was like, don't ever say that again. Right? He always looked out for me. Thank you, Dr. Mercado.
Don't let Lindsay Watson hear you say that.
Listen, I know I need to take some notes for her. I listened to her podcast. I was like, hold on. I messaged her the other day on LinkedIn. I was like, what? Like, I knew she was a powerhouse.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
My gosh, that was amazing.
Yes.
That was amazing. Yeah, these are like some big seats to fill with the people you've had in here.
Oh, that's why you're here.
Yeah,
that's why you're here.
Oh my gosh, I don't know. I've been listening. I'm like, wow, these people are amazing. So I went back, I started teaching, and then in the spring, they were like, you know what, could you just stay on for a little bit more? Well, that was 19 years later. I had stayed the whole time. And I went back when I was pregnant with my third daughter and got a master's in education from Cabrini College, what was Cabrini College. And in 2018, just about when we got the food truck, I thought, you know what, I need to go back and get my PhD. This is something where it's hard to move in academia
for teaching
without a PhD. Mm-hmm. And while I think that formal education is important, I also think that there are a lot of barriers up, a lot of guards up, that really brilliant people are not in academia because of so many hurdles, right? And so I was able to go back and work on my PhD. I'm at Lehigh right now studying teaching, learning, and technology.
Wow.
Defending my proposal for my dissertation next Thursday.
Huh.
And so my work looks at the way in which Black and Latino children see themselves in media. So
very interesting.
It's at the core of what I care about. I care deeply about children, and I care deeply about children who have been historically misrepresented, who have been, in spaces where things were not created for them. If you look at the curriculum in our schools, you find that the stories are very narrow. The stories represent typically like all the same people, right? So it's like the owning class, the rich, a lot of men, right? And a lot of obviously white men as well. Yeah. And while their contributions were critical, they're not the only stories. And yet those are the only stories that a lot of our young people hear. So this idea of like, if you can see it, you can be it. Yeah. If they're not seeing it, how do they aspire to that? How do they imagine that that's a life that they could live or a life that they would be in? I'm really interested too in Black and Latino women and how they see themselves in media. So how is it that they operate in this space that can be really hostile to women, and in particular women of color? How do they take ownership of that? How do they navigate that space so that they can really curate their feed, curate what they do to make sure that the representations that they're seeing empower them, right? Inspire them rather than denigrate them. And so that's most of my work that I did while I was teaching at Cedar Crest, was teaching race and gender in the media, teaching, of course, traditional communication classes as well, but teaching media literacy. Media literacy is at the core of like everything that I love. Media literacy is how is it that we act and create and decode all of these different skills, right? To really make sure that we understand how media works. Media are powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right?
It's a very important topic, especially with like all the different things I've been seeing on social media, like new documentaries. I don't know if you
Yes.
guys have like heard about like Quiet on Set and stuff. How like people, especially young people, are represented so wrongly.
Yes.
And it's a very important topic, and I really applaud you for like doing all
Yeah,
this.
and so there's 2 states right now that have media literacy curriculum built in, but it's something that Canada does. It's something that a number of other countries do, and we just don't really do that in the U.S. We don't have media literacy built in, but the average child is spending 7 hours and 45 minutes a day with media. So that's more time than a lot of them are sleeping, more time than they're
The
at
biggest
school.
influence, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
huge, and yet they're not given the skills to interpret what they're seeing.
Decipher.
That's exactly it. And so how do we equip them to decipher this? So this summer, I'm co-chairing the conference through the National Association of Media Literacy Education. And this is a conference, it's the biggest media literacy education conference in the US. And we bring together educators in a space that they can learn how to bring media literacy into their classrooms. Because if this isn't something we're doing at the national or the state level, there's a lot of educators who know how critical this is, that they know that their students need to be thoughtful consumers, really great creators, right? They need to understand that what you see is not reality.
Yeah.
They need to be able to understand the media world around them that wasn't made for them and really just wants them to buy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
That's important to educate,
Yeah.
again, the newer generation.
Yeah, because they're so smart and
Yeah,
they
they
care
are.
so much, and they get it because they're brilliant creators, right? And so that's a huge portion of media literacy, because when you create, you get to see how it's made.
Yes. You reverse engineer it.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And young people are the best at that. I'm like, here, can you figure this out? They're like, boop, boop. Here you go.
That's like when we were young, right? We did the VCRs for the teacher. Remember?
Oh my gosh.
The teacher would walk into the classroom and not have any clue how to run a VCR.
like,
And be
I got this.
There's always there was a 15 or 16-year-old kid in the class.
I
like,
got this.
I got it.
With the big TV with the belt strapped down
Oh,
onto like
goodness.
the thing.
Yeah. And
you
the
know,
overhead projector and
my
the whole thing.
with the like little things
You
would
don't
write
know.
on.
You don't know the
Oh
struggle.
my
You don't know the
gosh.
struggle.
Yeah, I would help my grandparents set the timer on their VCR. It was so tough. Even for me, I was like, what?
I remember
Yeah.
when the VCR had a remote control with a wire.
Oh my gosh. That makes me think too, like when, for so many of us, when we were growing up, there was maybe one TV in the household,
Yes.
one screen, and it was in the family space.
And it was
I
6 channels.
It was about 6 channels.
CBS, NBC, was it
ABC.
PBS?
Yeah, PBS was, yes.
Right,
Shout
two
out
PBS,
PBS.
yeah, 2 PBS
I know
stations.
that was your place
and
for a while.
Telemundo and Univision. That was it. That was it. If you were lucky.
If you were like, right. And you were not in charge of the TV.
Nope.
Right? If there was a person older than you in the room, I'm sorry, pass the remote, or maybe we were the remote, like switching the channel. But now with the amount of screens that are in a house, like think for a minute, those of us like listening and watching and those of us in this room, how many screens are in your household that you can get some type of media on?
And they're not screens you have to walk to. I mean, there's
you
a screen
don't.
that you take with
in my
you all
pocket.
the time. Like, you know?
Right. But if you counted them, right, and think about that, like, okay, we have 3 TVs and my older kids have a phone, but my younger kid has an iPad. They all have computers for school,
Yeah.
right, because they're all working on
My
Chromebooks, right? Like, just start to add those up.
It's like 15, 20
That's what I'm
screens.
saying.
And
like,
the thing is, like,
2
it's not
refrigerators,
like
right?
there's a time of day where all those shut off, because back in the day, TV shut off.
It went dark, right?
It was midnight,
Yeah.
and you would see that that color pattern.
Yeah.
It'd be a wrap
done.
until like
You're
5
done.
a.m. in the
Yep.
morning. That
Yep.
was it.
Yes. And I do think the media environment we have offers us some amazing choices now, but there's so many choices and there's no limit to it and there's no stop.
It's a good thing and a bad thing.
That is exactly what it is.
Yep.
Because media use in itself is not inherently good or bad. It depends on what you do with it, how
Right.
you use it. And that's really critical, right? I talk to parents a lot about media and how it is that they might engage with their children because they're nervous. They're like, how do I start my child on social media? how do I start that with them? So I've done workshops at
What's
a lot
your
of
answer to that?
Okay. It's a good one. I just made a booklet last week. I did a presentation at Bar 3, which is this amazing studio over in Allentown, and they have one in Bethlehem. And I've been addicted to it since they came there. And they said, would you come in and do a workshop on media literacy? So I put together this booklet. And for me, what I found when I was putting this together was that the most important thing you can do with your teens when they're on social media is have open communication with them. Because they're going to make mistakes there. The challenging part is that when you make a mistake on social media, it's so much bigger than if you just made a
Never goes away.
mistake, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So how do you have this line of open communication that when your child messes up, because they will, we all mess up on social, right? When they mess up, that they can come to you right away. And that there's not going to be a consequence if they followed through and came to you, right?
Yeah.
Because that's important. What happens the most is that kids will hide things that they've done or hide things that they've seen because they don't know what they can say. So having open communication, I think setting up each account with your child is really important because there's so many security settings that you can set up now, right? Because these social media companies have been pressured politically to put in more safety measures.
Yeah.
If you walk through it with them, you can set it up and really have that thing pretty locked down.
Yeah.
Right? I think having their passcodes to everything, you want to give kids autonomy, you want to give them respect, but your job is also to keep them safe.
Yeah.
So how do you balance this protectionist standpoint with this empowerment standpoint? And I think as kids get older, we can give a little less protection, not a whole lot less, a little less protection, and empower them more. So when they're 13, things are going to look a lot different than when they're 17 on their device. So it's about just talking with them, being with them, sharing in that space with them, and respecting that they really care about media. I think when we tell them like, oh, social media, that's, what is that? And all these things you're watching and, oh, this TikTok and this YouTube, when we, disparage the things that they care deeply about, that hurts them. So
Yeah,
how do we become kind of like mini experts, with
And we
with
have
what they're
to
doing?
because the internet's not going anywhere.
It is not.
staying.
It is. Social media is not going anywhere.
It's
I mean,
not.
if anything, it's going to evolve into something
right.
that's even more immersive.
That's absolutely right. Like in our house, right? I don't know, holograms, but like whatever
Yeah.
we thought
That's-
about.
that's where we're going.
Yeah.
All these things are so important. Like, there's little kids. I see like 5-year-olds with like iPads and stuff. Like, I didn't have a phone till I was in high school.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's become like the pacifier now. It's like, if they're crying, give them an iPad.
Yeah.
Let's let
And
them have
Yeah,
it.
that's so bad.
It's-
When I have a kid, like, they're not gonna be an iPad kid. Like, I refuse.
It's hard though, right? Because
We're going to come back and follow up with you on that and see if that's true.
I know. That's exactly what I was going to say. I have taught children in the media for a long time. And I remember before I had kids, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends no more than 2 hours of
We go
media
through that
use,
before breakfast.
right? So 2 and under 2, 0 time. Right. So I would say this and I presented this as I'm talking. And I had this woman come up to me after class and she was like, I have a child and they're on media for more than 2 hours. And I was like, oh my gosh, what did I do? Like, it's hard enough being a parent. Let me not make you feel bad in this class.
Yeah. Like I failed.
Yeah.
You're like, oh.
I mean, she changed the way I taught that class. I'm so grateful to her still.
No, I mean, that's a good point. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that there's something to be said about educating people without passing judgment.
That's exactly what it is, because there are those moments in our life when we have mommed or dad all we could that day, right? And if
Exactly.
it means that when I'm like, I was going to say making dinner, but when I'm driving to Cactus Blue and picking up dinner, if you need to be on your iPad for an hour because you need some downtime, I need some downtime. If that's what a parent does to get through their day, that's what a parent does, right? It's not about judgment, but it is about letting them know that, these might be the consequences, but these are also the rewards, right? Like you said, media is not necessarily good or bad, but I think if we're conscious about how much we consume it, we make better choices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But no judgment, mamas. But, less is typically better. Less is typically
Hey,
better.
listen,
Yeah.
and shout out to the moms out there.
This is what
They're
I'm
doing
saying.
the best that
This
they
is what
can.
I'm saying, yes.
They're doing that. I saw this cool little TikTok the other day that somebody created, and it was almost like a job interview. And they were saying like, well, the job is feeding people
Yes.
and doing all this stuff,
Yes.
and you have to be available 24 hours a day for this client and all that, but it doesn't pay anything. And they were like, well, we don't want that job. We're like, well, you're signed up for it because you're a mom.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Moms.
Yeah.
So
I mean, moms do so much.
Yeah,
They
like
do.
for example, like if I think about it, like me and my brother, we weren't, we didn't have phones and stuff, no iPads growing up. Like our parents had to play like Barbies with me.
Yeah.
To like entertain me. Like I didn't have that like iPad, so it's
Which
like
is-
harder. I feel like it was probably harder then than now, maybe a little bit, because like now they have like. They're like, here, like you can have.
But
TV
I think
or
it's
an
also we didn't know any different because you had what you had, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's
exactly.
not like you
It's a
had the
whole-
option.
You get what you get and you don't get upset.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
100%.
I think it's easier in some ways to have media, and then I think it's tough because now you have to figure out how to navigate this with your kid.
Yeah, that's
Right?
a whole
Like
other
it's
thing.
so like give me
I
a
think
Barbie.
you see both sides of it because
do.
as a
I do.
parent, it's difficult for you because it's another thing. But as a business person, it actually works to your advantage because it allows you to
Yeah.
get out there. So it's really a seesaw, right?
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. And the girls are like, "You're on social media," my kids, and I'm like, "Yes." And there are some days where I wish I did not have to be, because it can be a really volatile space.
Yeah.
People say whatever they're thinking.
Especially with businesses.
Oh my gosh. Oh my
Like,
gosh.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, people will, maybe a full meal at our place might cost $12, and people are tough. People are tough online. And we are open to criticism. That's how we grow. That's how we learn. Tell me all day long. But people are unkind about it.
Yeah.
People are rude. And we see them doing this to other places as well. So obviously it's not just us, but everyone feels that they should say exactly how they feel in a public space. And I think some of like the everyday common courtesy has gone away.
Yeah.
And so I hope for like a social media space where people are better to each other, especially for young people. There's a lot of bullying that takes place in those spaces,
that's another
and that bothers me a lot. That bothers me, and we see adults doing it too.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
see it. Like if I'm scrolling through Facebook, even sometimes I'm like, oh,
Yeah. I think we need a shift to caring for each other a little more.
Yeah, and that's
sure.
exactly why what we're doing right now is so important. I mean, this podcast is really all about building community
Yes.
and getting to know one another. The Lehigh Valley is, it's a small space.
It is small.
And eventually everybody gets to know one another. One of the things that we pour into the show is really kindness, and just, hey, we're all in it together. We made it through a pandemic together.
Yes.
We're living life together. We're supporting businesses. We're supporting, people in their journey through life. So I think that for some reason that doesn't fully translate over social media,
Yeah.
because I think that the anonymity of social media sometimes can be, a negative factor. But every time we have that opportunity to put that message in there, we remind people, hey, it's all about community. That's why Somos Familia became such a big thing for us.
It's beautiful. And I see what you're doing at the chamber with this podcast, and there's all these other spaces that you're at. I mean, you've been a central part of the community in all these nonprofit spaces and in getting your voice out there, but also amplifying the voices of other people. And I think that is critical, right? Like I came in, I wrote some names down because I thought, if I get a chance to like mention a name, like I want to make sure I have it right, because when we get into these spaces, to me, the biggest thing we can do is say other people's names.
Oh, give me some names.
Right, and shout them out.
Just
Yeah.
drop some names
All right,
in there.
so, I was
Give
listening.
people their flowers.
Yeah, on the way here, I was listening again for a second time to the podcast with Genesis.
Yes.
Yeah.
Give her flowers.
And so, brilliant. I'm like in awe of the
Well,
work that she's
you
doing.
talked about people who are going to run for office. That's going to be one
I'm
of
ready
them
with
right
my
there.
vote. All right, I'm ready. I'm ready for my vote. Last week, I had the opportunity to be in a meeting at Symphony Hall. So Symphony Hall is in the heart of Allentown, and yet they struggle with getting people from right around their space to come in.
Yeah.
So Diane Wittry, the conductor there, has been working really hard to figure out how do we break down those barriers? What do we do? How do we get people here in this space and make them feel like they belong? So, and I think you might have been invited to this too, AJ.
I might have missed it, but I saw Guillermo was out there.
So Guillermo Lopez was
yeah.
there. Hector Ortiz, who I always say is my cousin. We tell each other that we're cousins. He's from Mexico. So I don't think that we are, but we go for it because we've been on calls and committees together. The Rising Tide Loan Fund is where I first met him. And we get online and there's two Ortizes, so everyone's like, oh, you're related? You know, like that's kind of been like the joke, I think, in Allentown for a long time. It's like, no, Ortiz is Smith, right? Like everybody is Ortiz. Julio Garidi was there, Hector Ortiz, Guillermo, who I met years and years ago working with Norberto Dominguez and the Hispanic American League of Artists.
Norberto's he's one of those people that is a future guest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I had lunch with him the other day. That guy is amazing.
Yeah.
He is amazing.
An artist in his heart.
Yes.
And cares about people really deeply. That
He
was
does.
When he was running Hispanic American League of Artists, HALA, he met so many of us and brought us into these spaces where it was really the first time that I felt we were celebrating who we were. I think, growing up Hispanic Latino in Allentown has so many pluses. And at the time, there was also a lot of negativity. I mean, you walk around these spaces and people are judging and they're talking about, oh, these Latinos, these, and in this space where I thought, what is this? Who are they seeing? Because the people that I know are kind and warm and brilliant and would give you the shirt off their back, invite you in, give you their last meal. But there were all these stereotypes surrounding Latinos in the area. And what Norberto did was say, how do we show people who we are? So he did a theater. Ruben Ortiz was a part of that, and he's doing all kinds of things now in Hollywood.
And Norberto, he was with Miranda. What's the guy from Hamilton?
Yes, yeah, Lin-Manuel.
Lin-Manuel. He came up with Lin-Manuel in New York.
And he wanted to bring that space like here. So we would do dance and we would do art. And there were all these things, and we would go in and we would perform and we would show areas of the community. This is what the Latino community is. Yeah. What you know of it is a narrow space that's pretty inaccurate, right?
Yeah,
and here's who we are, and here's how we show up, and here's how we become a part of our city and give back to this city that we call home. Yep. I just think we're really lucky. The Valley, as you said, is a small place. One of my good friends, Megan, moved up here from Georgia just a few years ago, and she goes, you know everyone in the Lehigh Valley. That was like the first thing she said. And just like a year ago, we were at a coffee shop, and we were at Nowhere Coffee on Tillman.
Yeah.
Juan, give him some time. Yes. It's just a great way, like she starts name dropping it. You know who it is.
I will listen, I was like, let me get you all the names. That space we were in, sipping our We Will Shamrock You drink that they make. Yeah. And in walks like 3 different people at 3 different times that she knew. I was like, welcome to the Valley, Megan, right? So she realized like it's not just like that you grew up in the Valley, but if you come here and you immerse yourself, you're going to be part of the family.
Yeah. For sure.
And that thrills me. I think we have so much going for us in the Valley. And
I mean, Leslie shows up at the mall and they have to like stop traffic.
Right. I'm telling you, it is. But to see someone who like is famous, it's really, she's on
TV every day.
Yeah, it is though. It really is exciting, and for people to see people that look like them on TV, and for young people, there's nothing greater. Yeah. So you're gonna grow up. They're going to grow up. You're already grown up. But you're going to, like, as you get older, you're going to see all these young people who are like, I watched you when I was little.
Yeah.
You made me realize that I could do this. Yeah. You made me want to be in TV. You made me want to be a journalist. You made me want to be a writer. You made me want to be an actor because they saw you in this space. 100%. Right? And they believed that they could do it because you were doing it.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
So,
awesome.
Yeah, you might not hear that now, but I bet you do already. But just wait, that's going to just continue to grow. So you're doing amazing.
Yeah. Thank you.
So amazing.
So are you.
Yeah, it's a good place to be.
It is. It definitely is. Man, this has been such a good episode. I mean, I think we got so many different pieces of nuggets. I mean, obviously from your business experience, from your experience as an educator, from your passion, in terms of equity. I guess I'm wondering if we were to tie this whole thing up, for those who are listening to this and have gotten to know you a little bit better, what you're passionate about, your journey. What are like the three biggest pieces of advice that you have for the community as a whole? Like what are the three things that you wish?
Yeah.
Hey, I love working in threes.
I know,
Threes
so
are very
do I.
memorable.
Yeah.
The three things that we should all focus on, like to become that that kinder, gentler community.
It's a brilliant question. So when you said three, honest to goodness, I thought peace, love, tacos.
Yes.
That's what
Let's go.
Let's
go.
That was the first thing I
perfect.
thought of, but maybe you wanted more than that.
That's a good T-shirt, by the way. Peace, love, taco.
I think I have one already made up. It's going to be part of the More Mole collection.
Yes, let's go.
I'm really ready for this. I
Come
can't
on.
wait to rock this.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing is to be true to yourself, right? You're gonna end up in a lot of spaces, in corporate spaces and in volunteer spaces where you're going to be asked to do things that don't fit with who you are. And I think if you have this space and you can, you say no. I think we're taught very often to say yes to so many things. And I admire the people that say yes. And y'all are people who say yes. I'm someone who always says yes. But we're allowed to say no. And it seems like counterintuitive. Like you would think, I'd be like, say yes. And, I think we have to say no sometimes. We have to save our energies for the things we really care about and then pour ourselves into them. So how do you find your niche, right? How do you find out what really moves you? And how do you make a shift in that space? So I don't know if that was one or two. I would say support local. It is critical to each one of us who own a business in the Lehigh Valley and beyond, that when you come support us, it literally changes our lives. Mm-hmm. And, there are lots and lots of chains in the Lehigh Valley, and they're, good people work there. They're amazing. But when you bring $20 to a small restaurant or Verde, for example, in Bethlehem, like a little shop like that's beautiful, your $20 is a game changer, right? That's like, oh, okay, now I can buy this next thing, or now we can do this next thing. And that I think gets underestimated, so say no, be local. Don't say no to local. If I could combine those two together. And I do have to go with be kind. And I know that's a constant thread throughout this podcast, but we have so much that we can give, and we can give it kindly, right? So showing up in other spaces and mentioning other people's names, right? I think that's critical. I always want to be in a space where I can put someone's name forward. I always want to be in a space where I can hear other people putting names forward, because that's in part how I got to do so many of the things that I've done.
Yeah.
Somebody was like, oh, you could call Liz, or you could call Liz. And I wouldn't be where I was without those people. Yeah.
That's
Perfect.
awesome.
I don't know if that was 3 or 4,
No,
2
that
and a
was
half.
three.
But,
I mean,
okay.
I got say no, buy local, be kind.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I don't know if that's a shirt. The say no thing is weird, but you know what I mean.
We'll rephrase it.
Okay. That's good.
Like be selective,
Be selective.
buy local,
Yes.
be kind.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Yeah.
Yeah, write it down.
I know. Look, you saw me writing the whole time, right? Yeah. I can listen back to the podcast, which I'll be doing.
Yes. So tell people where they can find Cactus Blue.
Yes. So we are at 4030 Chestnut Street in Emmaus, and our food trucks, plural,
Are everywhere.
Are out
Literally.
all over
Just
the
look
valley.
for the brown. Just look for the brown.
that.
Big brown.
I don't.
What can brown do for you?
That's it. Sorry, UPS. But yeah, absolutely. We're everywhere, and so we love events. So come on out and see us. Or if you're having a big event, invite us because we would love to come.
Well, you're going to check your 3 or 4 color coded calendars to see if you're going to be at Taco Fest.
Yes, I'm very
Yeah, of
excited to
course.
check that. Yeah.
Hopefully you'll be there.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Do you want
I
to
hope
share
so, too.
your socials?
Yeah, so I am Elizabeth R. Ortiz on Instagram, and the same on LinkedIn, and the same on Facebook. So Elizabeth R. Ortiz, and you'll probably see my face there, or you might see a picture of me as a baby right now. It was my birthday at the end of February.
Oh, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you. I turned 45.
Wow.
So, yay.
Congratulations.
So that was fun. And I had a picture of myself when I was little, and it's in this shirt, and it says "Wanted for eating cookies," and it's like my favorite thing because that's still like
That's awesome.
I'll take a cookie any day.
Yes.
So yeah, please come find me. I would love to connect. LinkedIn is a beautiful space
It
for
sure
that.
is. Yep.
Because people are
It filters
just there.
out. It filters out all of the. I mean, you don't get that people back and forth with one another. I mean, people are there for business.
I think so
to
too.
connect.
And I think what I love about it is, when someone asks me, oh, who can do this? I'm like, wait, I know someone.
Yep.
I could go to LinkedIn and be like, calm. I type in whatever it is that I'm looking for, and find 3 or 4 people who are in that space and doing that thing.
Yeah.
I'm connected with all of my former students. I had a project in class. I would ask them to do a LinkedIn profile. And this was before everybody was using LinkedIn. So they were like, what is this, woman asking us to do? But I'm so grateful
they
they
probably
did.
thank you now.
Yeah, it was in 2012. Like we started doing this.
Oh my
in my
goodness,
class.
that's like when LinkedIn was like
it was a
first coming.
baby.
I mean,
Yeah.
but the thing is, like, there was so little attention there.
Yes.
That if you posted anything, you would
my
get
gosh.
so many views.
Yeah, the algorithms
wow.
weren't like, pushing things the way they are now. But yeah, so I'm connected with so many of my former students now in that space, and I can see them and I can follow their progress, and I can, I'm always about the clapping hands.
Yeah.
And that's brilliant. And I can bring their names up in places where they aren't.
Awesome.
That's amazing.
Awesome. Well, Liz, thanks so much for joining
you.
us
Thank
on
you
this
so
episode. And for those of you who are listening, thank you again for being with us. We love the fact that we're able to have community online, that we're able to share these podcasts in a way that reaches far beyond just these 4 walls in South Bethlehem. So thanks again for tuning in to Somos Lehigh Valley. We'll see you next week.